Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mr. Walker's Chemistry. Today we're going to talk about the periodic table, and specifically how the periodic table of elements was developed over time. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about how the periodic table was developed, but I'm just going to give you a basic overview. So, by the end of this video, you should know who created the first periodic table. Okay, it's a name you're going to need to know. And tell me how the periodic table is arranged today. Okay, it's got a kind of a funky shape. Well, where did that shape come from? What does it all mean? And how do we use it effectively? Okay, so the first guy to develop any sort of periodic table that resembles something like what we see today was Dmitry Mendeleev. This was back in 1871, and he developed, again, what most chemists consider to be the very first periodic table. He arranged this table so the elements in the same column, which we call groups in chemistry, would have similar properties. All right. First, he tried arranging them by mass. All right, and he was mostly correct by doing this. So he took all the known elements of the time, and he arranged them into columns so that you had increasing atomic mass and similar properties. Okay, the properties is the big thing, and remember that we call a column a group. All right. So I said in this slide, he's mostly correct, and he later found that that didn't quite work out. By increasing by mass worked for the first several elements, but then it began to fall apart, and he lost his grouping the way that he would like. So he broke this trend, and he wanted to keep the elements with the same similar properties in the same columns. So he found that mass didn't work, but he found that if he left gaps and he arranged them still by properties, that his periodic table would work. All right. So these gaps that he left were predictions. Mr. Mendeleev predicted elements that had not yet been discovered, and he was generally correct. All right. So, for example, eka-silicon is what Mr. Mendeleev called germanium, which is the name of it today. And it wasn't discovered until 15 years after Mendeleev created this periodic table, and other elements soon filled in. So here's what his first periodic table looked like. Okay, so he called it periodic system of the elements in groups and series. All right, so these rows he called series, and then he had groups. He had a group naught, and then 1 through 8. And you can see that generally these look kind of like our periodic table today. It's a little bit different. He's got hydrogen up by itself, sure, above lithium and all the sodium, potassium, etc., just like what group 1 on the periodic table looks like today, are very similar. And, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, that's pretty much the order that they're in now. So some things are very, very similar, but then you start getting down here and you have, gold is not, in group 1, it's a transition metal, things like that, these odd ones that he didn't really know where to put, but he tried to group them by similar property anyhow. Okay, and you'll see that there are gaps. All these dashes are gaps, and he wasn't sure what would go there. Okay. So today we still follow Mr. Mendeleev's principle, and that is that we want to keep things in the same group that have similar properties, and we also want to increase them by atomic number. So this is why Mr. Mendeleev was almost correct by ordering elements by mass, because the periodic number, or the atomic number, tells us the number of protons. So protons make up half of the mass equation. Okay, protons plus neutrons equal mass. So he was almost correct when he used the mass, but today we can figure out numbers of protons very easily, very quickly, using sophisticated machinery. And so with this, he was able to create a periodic table, and we've just modified it over time so that we keep the groups and we keep the rows, but we just go by number. Okay, and this periodic law is what we use today. So just a quick little history for you. That's really all there is to it. If you're more interested in knowing the exact dates when things were changed and elements were added and all of that, that's available out there on the internet. So just a quick review. Dmitry Mendeleev developed the first periodic table, and then today we group them based on their properties in a group or column. All right, these are vocabulary words to know. And we increase the elements based on the proton number, which is atomic number, not atomic mass. I should change that. Atomic number. Okay, so little mistake there, sorry. All right, so today it's arranged by atomic number, which is based on proton number and repeats similar properties in a group. All right, that's all for today. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.